It's Monday, April 15th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. And today, on the first day of the week, we end up with a two down red bar, a continuation where we took out the low of the previous day, closed strongly red. On the weekly chart, we would come into the week anticipating that the low of last week would be tested. We gapped up a little bit, but we did move down right out of the gates, which I'll show you in a second. And we actually, on this two down continuation, reached our triple targets down here, 1, 2, 3. And that was kind of high probability, and we happened to do it all in one, day to the downside here. Now on the monthly chart, we actually have a two down month. So if we look at the monthly chart, since our weekly chart targets have been met, you can see here this target would normally be down to the low of this month, down, all the way to the 490, 483 area. But this is also a gap in here between the high of this bar and the low of this bar. So we might just want to fill that in some point before you get some kind of pause on the month. If we continue red, all month long here and hold down here strongly red, then you'd expect continuation into the next month. But we still have half a month to go. So who knows if we'll come down in this area and start to develop a little bit of a buying tail. You never know for sure. I mean, the weekly targets have been met, but the continuity certainly still to the downside. So, you see a big red bar like this, you certainly expect that low to be tested tomorrow. But at this point, we're definitely in a downtrend, and it's pretty obvious. The question is now, day after day, are you going to go red, red, red? I mean, there have been times where you've seen that, especially, I'd have to go way back and show you. I remember there were times where you'd get like red, red, red 4 or 5 days in a row. So anything's possible as long as you hold the midpoint of this bar. We should test lower. After a big move like this, you kind of expect a little consolidation. And even if we're going to head lower, in other words, we've been biased to the downside all month, ever since the open here of April. You can see the purple line is the open of the month. And we've been biased to the downside in the big picture until that open was taken out. But along the way, there are a bunch of, green days in here, and there's gaps up, and there's, even though you're working lower day after day, you kind of have to use, opening price action to kind of judge what's happening. So for today, for example, it was very clear. I mean, we had the pre-market range between the blue lines. First bar just kind of held up there inside bar 2, then bar 3. It started lower. I bought some puts here. I described it. Classic one push down, pause, second push down, and it just kept going all session long. So this is just a classic directional day. You're expecting, the weekly low to be taken out, and it certainly did that and more. But on some of these days, even though the trend is down, you'll note, I remember there was a day up here where we gapped up big, and the only way it moved lower was after kind of failing at the highs and then kind of coming back to test the intraday low. Some days, on the downtrend, after a big move down, you could see here, opening price action, pause, and then started up all day. So there was nothing on a day time frame to really get short in any way, shape, or form. And even the next day, I remember this day, it kind of, even though you're expecting the downtrend to continue, price started up a little bit. It then came down to take out the first bar low and then held there. And then finally it took a outside day, to start that downtrend again for a few days. So, after big moves down, it's tricky to know if you're going to get momentum, day after day after day, but you'll just use opening price action. And hopefully if it's going to be a day where you pause a little bit, you'd get upside action, so you won't even be tempted to go short. But there could be failures at the intraday high and then that start lower. That could be a good signal. Or we could out of the gates, go a little, keep in mind that if you get something out of the gates, that start lower, you get a brief, pullback up into this area. So there was a day like that. Let me see if I remember it. Where out of the gates, it went down and took the low out. Trying to remember from last week. It might have been this day right here where you're expecting lower, although this one started more near the highs, and you went down. You definitely took out the low of the previous day, but then it had a big rally up the next day. In the afternoon. So we could come down tomorrow. It looks like a nice momentum trade, but then all of a sudden it reverses and gets some kind of a pullback. And this trend, if you look at it, it has more of a 45-degree angle, and we're kind of at the bottom of that. So in this channel, it could certainly pause in this area, but we're going to continue to be biased to the downside now all week long, and until that open is taken out. And like I said, to me, to get back to the upside, now that we have 3 weeks in a row that we're red, I want to see this weekly chart reverse to the upside in some way. It's possible that we get a turnaround Tuesday and do that, or we get a small bar, and then maybe Wednesday we go up, and by the end of the week it's kind of a hammer bar in here. So anything's possible now that we've hit some targets. So we're going to go day by day. But today was a very good day to the downside in terms of just following opening price action. And if you kind of look at all these days, that developed in this overall downtrend, the opening price action plus pre-market range generally kept you, in good positions, in terms of not getting hurt too bad, and then taking advantage of, some of the structure that unfolded, even though it was choppy along the way. So good start to the week in terms of, if you're just sticking with continuity to the downside. And now after a big move down, we kind of have to, kind of see how the week plays out. But the monthly chart is still red, and there's definitely a pivot machine gun. If you look at this, there's no reason why you just can't get stop taking all that out. So we might go week after week down until something really begins to change, and that's all you can say at this point. So good day to the downside today. We'll just see where things go tomorrow. Expect that low to be taken out, but don't be surprised if this consolidation, or don't be surprised if an early move down, doesn't really go all that far before it consolidates. But to me, the target is, into this monthly gap down here, which would be to the 490-ish area. And I would think psychologically we try to get below 500 as well. So, that's kind of what's unfolding here. However it gets there, whether if it pauses first, that's even better for an event, somewhere in this daily chart up in here to eventually expect a continuation lower. So, I'd actually prefer a little bit of upside that fails, to get short. But we'll see what happens. And that's a recap for today.